Sit down a while, son. I've been watching you these past months, seeing how you carry yourself, how you move through this world. And I wonder if you've ever asked yourself this question: what makes a man truly respected? To hear is something I want to share with you tonight. Something I wish someone had told me when I was your age. When I thought respect was something you could grab hold of, something you could demand or chase after like a dog after a stick. I spent too many years learning this the hard way, son. Too many years making noise when I should have been making substance. Let me tell you about lanterns, child. Real lanterns, not these electric things we flip on and off without thinking. I am talking about the old oil lanterns, the kind your great-grandfather used to carry when he'd walk the property at night, checking on things, making sure all was well. You see, a real man is like one of those lanterns in the fog. He doesn't shout to be seen. He doesn't wave his arms around, trying to get attention. He just burns, steady, warm, unshaken by whatever wind might blow. And those who need the light, well, they find him. They always do. Now, I look around today, and I see so many young men, good men, mind you, swinging torches around, trying to outshine one another, hollering for respect like it's something you can order off a menu. Their flames flicker bright for a moment. Sure enough, they make a lot of noise, throw off a lot of heat. But son, those flames burn out fast. They consume everything around them and leave nothing but smoke and ash. But a man of quiet worth knows something different. He knows that respect doesn't come to the loudest voice in the room. It comes to the one who stands firm when nobody's watching. That's the kind of fire that guides others home, even through the thickest fog. Let me break this down for you, because there are two parts to this lantern that matter most. First, T here is the steady flame itself. That's your character, your integrity. And second, T here is the way that light reaches others. That's your influence, your quiet leadership. The flame, son, that's built in the dark hours when no one's around to applaud. I remember your great-grandfather again. He'd get up every morning at 5, not because anyone made him, but because the animals needed feeding and the work needed doing. Rain or shine, sick or well, he'd be out there. Never complained about it, never bragged about it. Just did it, day after day, year after year. That's how character gets built, not in the spotlight, but in the ordinary moments when you choose to do right even when it costs you something. When you keep your word even when it's inconvenient. When you treat the janitor with the same respect you'd show the company president. When you admit your mistakes instead of making excuses. You know what I've learned about real strength? It's not about how loud you can roar or how hard you can pound your chest. Real strength is quiet. It's the man who can control his temper when someone cuts him off in traffic. It's the father who comes home tired from work but still has patience for his children's questions. It's the husband who says, "I am sorry" first, even when he's only half wrong. The world will try to tell you that respect comes from being the alpha, from dominating others, from making sure everyone knows how important you are. But that's not respect, son. That's fear. And fear fades the moment you are not in the room. I remember when I was about your age, maybe a little younger, I worked at the lumber mill with a man named Big Jim Patterson. Jim was everything I thought a man should be back then. 6'4", arms like tree trunks, voice that could shake the rafters. When Jim walked into a room, conversations stopped. When he spoke, people listened. And I thought, that's what I want. That's respect. So I tried to be like Jim. I'd puff out my chest, speak louder than necessary, make sure everyone knew I was there. I'd interrupt conversations, always trying to have the last word, always trying to prove I was the smartest, the strongest, the most important person in the room. And you know what happened? People started avoiding me. They'd see me coming and suddenly remember they had somewhere else to be. It took me years to understand why. Jim commanded attention, but he didn't command respect. People feared him, sure. They obeyed him because they had to. But the moment he wasn't around, they'd roll their eyes and make jokes about him. That's when I realized I'd been chasing the wrong thing entirely. The man who really had everyone's respect was quiet old Henry, the mill foreman. Henry was maybe 5'6" on a good day. Spoke so softly you had to lean in to hear him. But when Henry talked, everyone listened, not because they were afraid, but because they knew whatever he said would be worth hearing. When there was a problem, people went to Henry. When someone needed advice, they sought out Henry. When the mill owner needed someone he could trust completely, he turned to Henry. Henry never demanded respect. He never had to. He'd earned it, one small act at a time, one kept promise at a time, one moment of integrity at a time. That's when I started to understand what my grandfather had been trying to teach me all along. Now, the second part of that lantern, the way the light reaches others, that's where most men get it backwards. They think influence means telling people what to do, means being the loudest voice, means making sure everyone knows they're in charge. But real influence works like that lantern light. It just spreads, naturally, quietly. I think about the men who shaped me most in my life, and not one of them ever had to tell me they were worth respecting. There was Mr. Henderson, who ran the hardware store when I was a boy. Never raised his voice, never bragged about anything. But when he gave you his word, you could take it to the bank. When he said something needed doing, you knew it was important. When he looked at you with those steady eyes and nodded, you felt like you could move mountains. Mr. Henderson remembered every customer's name, asked about their families, their troubles, their joys. When old Mrs. Murphy couldn't afford the parts to fix her fence after the storm, he'd quietly slip them into her bag and mark it paid. When young Tommy Fletcher got caught shoplifting, instead of calling the sheriff, Mr. Henderson put him to work sweeping floors and stocking shelves until he'd worked off what he'd stolen. Then kept him on because he saw potential in that boy. People didn't just shop at Henderson's hardware because it was convenient. They went there because they trusted the man behind the counter. They knew he'd give them honest advice, fair prices. and treat them with dignity whether they were buying a single nail or outfitting an entire construction project. Or there was Sergeant Martinez in the service, smallest man in our unit, but when things got tough, we all looked to him. Not because he demanded it, but because he'd already proven himself 100 times over in the small moments. He'd share his rations when someone was hungry. He'd take the worst watch shifts without complaining. He'd remember your mother's name and ask about her in his letters. Martinez never gave speeches about leadership or respect. He just lived it. When we were scared, he was calm. When we were tired, he found ways to keep our spirits up. When we made mistakes, he'd correct us without humiliation, teach us without condescension. And when the real test came, when we were under fire and everything was chaos, we followed him not because we had to, but because we trusted him completely. That's how real influence works, son. It's not about commanding respect. It's about earning it so quietly, so consistently, that people start following your light without even realizing they're doing it. Here is what took me too long to understand. The men who chase respect never really get it. They might get compliance. They might get people saying, "Yes, sir," to their faces, but they don't get respect. Because respect isn't something you can take. It's something that has to be given freely. The man who demands to be called sir isn't respected, he's tolerated. The man who has to remind every one of his accomplishments isn't admired, he's pitied. The man who needs to put others down to feel big isn't strong, he's weak, and everyone can see it, even if they don't say so. I learned this lesson the hard way when I became a supervisor at the plant. I thought the promotion meant I had to be tougher, louder, more demanding. I started barking orders, criticizing every little mistake, making sure everyone knew I was the boss. Production went down. Morale went down. Good people started quitting, and I couldn't understand why. Then one day, old Pete, he'd been there longer than anyone, pulled me aside. "Son," he said, "you are trying so hard to be the boss that you forgot how to be a leader. A boss tells people what to do. A leader shows them how it's done." That hit me like a punch to the gut. I realized I'd been so focused on getting respect that I'd forgotten to be respectable. So I changed my approach. Instead of criticizing mistakes, I started teaching better methods. Instead of barking orders, I started explaining why things needed to be done a certain way. Instead of staying in my office, I started working alongside my team, getting my hands dirty, showing them I wasn't above any job I asked them to do. It didn't happen overnight, but slowly things changed. People started coming to me with ideas instead of just problems. They started taking pride in their work again, and when the plant manager came around, he noticed. Not because I told him how great I was, but because the results spoke for themselves. The man who serves without fanfare, who leads by example, who lifts others up instead of tearing them down. That man becomes a lantern in the fog. People are drawn to his light not because he forces them to be, but because they want to be. Because in a world full of noise and chaos, Here is something deeply comforting about a steady flame. You want to know the secret, son? The secret is that real men don't chase respect at all. They chase something much more important. They chase becoming the kind of man worthy of respect. They focus on their character, their integrity, their service to others. And respect follows naturally, like light follows flame. Think about the men you truly admire, not the ones who make the most noise or have the biggest titles, but the ones you genuinely look up to. I'll bet they have something in common. They're consistent. They're the same person whether anyone's watching or not. They keep their word. They treat everyone with dignity. They admit when they're wrong and work to make it right. They don't need to tell you they're good men. You can see it in how they live. That's the kind of man this world is hungry for, son. In an age of social media posturing and constant self-promotion, people are starving for authenticity. They're tired of the noise, tired of the show, tired of men who talk big but deliver small. They're looking for someone real, someone steady, someone they can count on. I've watched you growing up, and I see so much potential in you. I see a young man who wants to make his mark on this world, who wants to matter, who wants to be respected. And that's good, that's natural. But remember this. The mark you make won't be measured by how much noise you made getting there. It'll be measured by how many people found their way because of your light. Don't be a torch, son, burning bright and fast and leaving nothing but smoke. Be a lantern. Burn steady, burn true. Burn for the long haul. Let your character be your fuel and your service be your wick. And when the fog rolls in, and it will roll in, believe me, you'll find that people naturally turn toward your light. The world needs more lanterns, child. It needs more men who understand that real strength is gentle, that real leadership serves, that real respect is earned in the quiet moments when nobody's keeping score. It needs men who can be trusted with secrets, counted on in crisis, and looked up to without reservation. So go out there and burn steady. The fog is thick these days, and there are a lot of people trying to find their way home. They need your light, not because you are shouting for their attention, but because you are simply, quietly, faithfully there. That's the kind of man this world needs. That's the kind of man I know you can become. Now, you think on that a while, and remember, the best lanterns burn brightest, not when the night is calm, but when the storm is raging. That's when people need the light most. That's when being steady matters most. Be that light, son. The world is waiting.